Please stand by.
Alright, what's up guys? Ethan Rowe here. I am here to give you all part 2 of my spoiler review for Avengers Endgame. Now, before I get back into the review, I just want to go ahead and give one quick shout out to a guy I work with. If you're watching, Blake Westerfield. You came up to me today saying that you watched all of my spoiler review for Avengers Endgame Part 1. You say you listened to all of it and said that I had a fan in him. And dude, I can't be more than grateful for you coming up to me and saying that. Yeah, I'm just at a loss for words for it, man. But if you're watching this, see you tomorrow. We'll be talking about this. But anyways, part 2 for Avengers Endgame spoiler review. Here we go. Alright, where we left off was when Rocket and Thor went to 2013 Asgard, where Thor the Dark World took place. They had to go and extract the ether, or the ether, however you say that. I say it like the ether. Pretty much to get the reality stone out of Jane Foster, who is played by Natalie Portman. And surprisingly enough, she actually excuse me, she actually came back for a little cameo in this. Excuse me. Come on, let's get through it. Come on, let's go. Yeah. But anyways, so she came back for a cameo, just a small little cameo in this. But Rocket ends up going with like the little extract thingy. I don't even know what it's called, but he ends up going into the room where Jane Foster is sleeping to extract the ether from her, and Thor is like on the watch out for like anybody coming or any it's just something like that. And while Thor, I think he gets like distracted or something like that, and then his mother walks up to him, and just a little bit before that, he tells Rocket this is the day she dies. And while, you know, Thor's trying to, like, you know, keep it cool, it's like, yeah, watching out, you know. And she immediately tells, she immediately can tell that he's not from this time. And she says, I was raised by witches. You don't think I can tell? He's like, yeah, I'm from another time. He just starts whimpering, and it's actually really funny, but you could tell he's just like heartbroken, and he's happy to see his mother. But, you know, they have like a little touching scene, and he really wants to tell her so bad that she's going to die, but he was just about to until Rocket came in, and everybody's just like, all the guards are rushing him. It's like, we have to go now. And luckily Thor didn't tell her, because that would have screwed up with the timeline. And I forgot in last night's review about Nebula and Rhodey, War Machine. They went to a planet called Morag, something like that. Someone let me know down in the comments how to pronounce that, or the pronunciation of that. But anyways, they went to that one planet where in 2014 is where we met Peter Quill at the beginning of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And they went to go get the Power Stone. And of course, you know, they successfully knock out Quill and end up getting the Power Stone. But there's like a foil in the plan. Somehow future nebula and past nebula, like their memory banks are somewhat correlated. And the past nebula gets like a transmission displayed in Thanos' ship. And that's how Thanos, becomes a factor again in this movie, and it becomes a threat because he finds out the Avengers' plans to go back in time and get all the Infinity Stones before Thanos can get to them. And while all that is going on, of course, all that's going on, Thanos ends up finding out, and we hop to Black Widow and Hawkeye. They went to Vormir back in 2014. And of course, we all know Red Skull is guarding the Soul Stone. And of course, I don't know why I didn't pick up on it, like, them two having to go to Vormir, because in Infinity War, Thanos had to sacrifice Gamora for one that he loved. And I don't know why in the movie I didn't pick up on that until, right as soon as Red Skull explained it to him, to to Hawkeye and Black Widow. And I was like, well, duh, I knew that. But anyways, they're really debating on who should sacrifice themselves in order for the other to get the Soul Stone and end up, having to save the world. And honestly, I thought Clint was going to be the one to sacrifice himself, because, of all the pain and suffering that he's been through. And I like that little fight between Clint and Natasha that they have, in order for one of them to sacrifice themselves, because one of the other don't want them to sacrifice themselves because they love each other. They're really good friends. Also, by the way, the continuity aspect I was talking about last night, whenever they were heading to Vormir, I think Clint, he said, this is the long way from Budapest. And Budapest is mentioned in the very first Avengers by them. It's like, I think Black Widow says it's like Budapest all over again, and Hawkeye's like, you and I remember Budapest way differently, which was a very nice moment between them two, because they shared a smile, little laugh in that moment. But flash forward, they end up fighting, and just about when you see Clint, he's just about to dive off that cliff to sacrifice himself, Black Widow comes and sweeps him up and makes sure like he's attached to like a wire, and he's holding on to her off the cliff, and she's like, let me go, and she ends up forcing herself off from his grip. And honestly, I did not see that coming. That's whenever I started crying again. I was like, motherfucker, come on now. It's like, I honestly did not expect Black Widow to die. Did not expect that. But she went out in a blaze of glory. That was her swan song. She sacrificed herself for all of humanity. Pretty much 50% of it, but you know what I mean. Pretty much for all of humanity. She saved the world, to say the least. And that shot where after Clint got the Soul Stone, he's laying in that pool, and after like he rises up, he realizes he has the stone. That shot, I know my mom said something about it. She's like, that's an awesome shot, she whispered to me. I was like, I know, right? I wish I could do that shit. But flash forward, I think Rhodey ends up being able to go back where him and Nebula were at to get the Soul Stone. I mean, not Soul Stone, Power Stone. And Rhodey was able to go back to the future, no pun intended, and while Nebula was trying, she ends up locking up with that past Nebula, well, like with the memory banks, and that's how she finds out that Thanos knows, because of past Nebula. And she's trying to get the word out to the team, but she was unsuccessful with that. And Thanos' ship ends up sucking her up, and they retract the pretty much retract the information from her somehow. I can't really remember, but excuse me, sorry, I'm burpy tonight. But past Nebula ends up disguising herself as future Nebula, and that's how past Nebula was able to go back and return back in time with the other Avengers. And that's how, like, the plan ended up getting foiled. So we fast track to present day, well, 5 years later still, but it's present day where we're at. And I think Tony and Bruce end up making a makeshift Infinity Gauntlet, and they were all talking about who should do the snap, and of course Hulk is the only one who can be able to withstand the powers of the Infinity Stones, because it almost killed Thanos. So imagine what it would do to any one of them except the Hulk. Foreshadowing, by the way. And not Thanos, but Hulk ends up doing the snap after a very gruesome, it was gruesome for him, agonizing, painful, because he could barely get it off in time for the snap. And while all that's going on, past Nebula was able to get Thanos through the quantum hole, and ends up shooting right out of that thing. His whole ship, pretty much his whole army, really. And right before Thanos breaks, all hell on the Avengers compound, Bruce was successful with the snap. And how do you know? Laura, Clint's wife, ends up calling Clint. And that's how you know that it really worked. And just right before the shit hit the fan, you can see Ant-Man just looking at like a little bird. Next thing you know, boom. Thanos is raining hellfire onto the Avengers compound, pretty much decimating it. And that's when the big battle commences. And holy shit, was it a battle? It was a big battle. Let's dive into it. So, right from there, you get everyone trying to get out of the wreckage, rubble, whatever you call it. And they're just trying to pretty much regroup after that. And Thanos, he decides to wait pretty much at the center of the wreckage and just wait for anybody to come up and challenge him. And that's whenever everyone's pretty much starting to come out, and Captain America, Tony Stark, and Thor, which was pretty badass whenever Thor summoned his lightning and got his suit back on. Of course, I really thought for a moment that Fat Thor was going to turn skinny again, but no. He actually did. He remained fat, but he still looked badass. And with that beard, it was like all twirled up, just like Odin, which was pretty cool. And it's like he's turning more and more into his dad, in a way. And just the way they were all walking up to Thanos, like you could feel that tension building. And Thanos, he's just talking shit, saying that, you know, you couldn't live with your own failure, so where did that lead you? Back to me. And he's like, this time I'm gonna like snap away all of the universe so no one remembers what happened and make it in my own image. And so they begin the fight, and pretty badass, really. Of course, Thanos, he at the start of it, he pretty much has the upper hand, and I think he took out Tony first, and then Cap, and then him and Thor are going at it, and of course Thor's using both Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, however you say his hammer's name, like his the real name for his hammer. I really can't pronounce it that well, but he's fighting Thanos with both of those, and Thanos ends up shoving his hammer out of the way, so it's just only his axe, and Thanos ends up getting the upper hand, and you think he's going to get the kill shot on Thor, and it zooms in on his hammer, and it's like, you know, trying to lift up, and then it like for a moment you think Thor's trying to call it, but you know, it shoots past them. Who do you know ends up getting the hammer? Fucking Captain America. I wanted to jump out of my seat whenever, you know, he got the hammer. It's like, he's worthy! He's worthy! That's how I wanted to be. I looked at my mom, I was like, yeah, he's worthy! He's worthy! Let's go! I was so pumped up. Excuse me. But just talking about it, it gets me pumped up. If you could tell the redness in my face. But there's just so many feelings with this movie. Oh my God. And I love how Thor responded. He's like, I knew it. I knew it. Because in Avengers Age of Ultron, whenever they were all trying to lift Thor's hammer, you know, Captain America, you know, ended up wiggling just a little bit. And so that was a very good payoff to that. And, you know, Captain America is starting to beat his ass with that hammer. And, you know, he's summoning the lightning from the hammer and just going to town. But eventually, Thanos ends up getting the upper hand and just ends up throwing Cap to the side. And it breaks half of his shield off. And ends up, I think, either cutting him or stabbing him in the gut. And that's whenever Cap's all alone. Pretty much everyone else is, I think, down for the count at that time. And, you know, Cap ends up standing up by himself, Thanos and Thanos' army behind him. And, you know, he ends up tightening his shield. It's like, oh, goodness gracious. Oh, Lord. I literally thought this was going to be the end for Captain America. I was like, let's get the waterworks ready again. I've already cried several times. Let's might as well start doing it now. And the next thing you know, you hear Cap, on your left. And he said, it's Sam. And that's whenever you knew everyone's coming back. And right behind Captain America, you see Doctor Strange's little circle coming up. And here comes Black Panther and Shuri and Okoye. I think it was Okoye. Coming out from Wakanda. And Bucky and all of them. And everyone starts coming out. And it's like, oh my God. Everyone from every movie starts coming out. And all the people that were snapped back into existence started coming out. And it's just like, oh, it's like a nerd's wet dream. Honestly, this was every single movie for the past 11 years has been building up to this moment. And it's like, I have goosebumps right now just talking about this. Wow. And whenever everyone's finally assembled, like, standing right behind Cap, he yells, "Avengers assemble," and that's when he's like, "Oh my God!" And the big battle commences, and everyone is going balls to the wall. It is action packed, and it's just like you can't help but to just be starstruck. And it was just so much to take in, really. And I've only seen it once. I still can't process everything. I have to go see it again. I want to go see it again. I don't have time, though. I need to make time. Anyways, the big battle is, underway. And I think Tony walks up to Doctor Strange, so it's like, is this it? Is this that one time? And then Doctor Strange is like, if I tell you, it won't happen. And that's when you know something's being foreshadowed here. And oh, Pepper ends up coming into play with the rescue suit from Iron Man 3. And boy, can she rock that suit. Holy shit. I was very surprised. But it just made it all the more exciting. I mean, literally everybody is in this battle. You got Spider-Man, Black Panther, the Guardians, everybody. It's hard to name off. And I thought Captain Marvel's entrance into this movie, into the final battle, was pretty badass, actually. And of course, whenever they were all assembling, I was just like, where the hell's Captain Marvel at? And I know my mom made the comment too. It's like, where is she? Like, we haven't seen her since the beginning of the film, really. Excuse me. But whenever Scarlet Witch, Scarlet Witch, whenever Scarlet Witch had Thanos, she was badass mother effer. I swear. And she had Thanos, and she was about to dismangle him, because she told him, it's like, you took everything from me. And he's like, I don't even know you. And then she just like looks at him, you will. And it's like, oh, she's hot, by the way. She's hot. And Thanos says, all fire, just pretty much rain, hell, fire everywhere. And that's what got Scarlet Witch to get distracted so she can let go of Thanos. But then all the fire ends up going towards the sky, and it's like, well, why are they firing at? It's just a big old fireball. And then it dawned on me, Captain Marvel, she made a big interest into this, and she ends up flying through the ship, making it explode, and ends up kicking ass. And Peter had the gauntlet and trying to get to the van where Scott Lang and Hope, the Wasp, was at, trying to get it to through the quantum realm. And Peter ends up getting beat up pretty good, and Captain Marvel was like, I can take care of that kid. And he's like, well, how are you going to make it through all that? And I will say, whenever the women teamed up right there, it was phenomenal. Really, it was. And I was just like, oh, some badass bitches right there. And Captain Marvel ends up, flying through all of them. And I think it was Thanos who blew up that van, so they couldn't get it through the quantum realm. And Captain Marvel and Thanos started fighting, and she can hold her own, but Thanos was out also, holding his own against her too. But it was pretty badass when he went for a headbutt and she didn't even budge. I thought that was like, whoa. But he ends up taking the Power Stone out of the gauntlet and ends up punching her with it. And you really don't see her until after that, until at the very end, really. But that's whenever Oh man, here we go. That's whenever Thanos puts the Power Stone back in to the gauntlet, and you see Tony come out of nowhere, and he's just fighting tooth and nail trying to get that gauntlet off of him. And he shrugs him to the side just a couple times, and he tries one more time to get that gauntlet off of him, but it looks like he's unsuccessful at first, and then he's like, I am inevitable, and he's like, what the fuck? And the stones are gone, and next thing you know, you see Tony with all the stones in his hand, and you could tell it's hurting him because of the power radiating through his body. And then he's just like, I am Iron Man. And oh my God, going back to the very first Iron Man, where at the very end he says, I am Iron Man, and then for that to come full circle, you're just like, oh. But then you realize he can't handle the power of the Infinity Stones, and then he snaps. Everything turns white for a brief moment, and all of Thanos' army starts to fade away, and then Thanos just like, oh crap. He realizes he finally lost, and then he ends up fading away to the dust, but that just leaves Tony. Half of his body is burned up, and his body couldn't handle the power of the stones, and he ends up dying. Lord, I cried. That was heartbreaking, but yet it was like the perfect ending for Tony Stark, because in the very first movie he wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have made that self-sacrifice, and it just made it so much harder because Peter ends up coming up saying, Mr. Stark, it's okay, I'm sorry, and he starts crying. Then Pepper moves him to the side, and she's like, it's okay, you can rest now. And of course he's just so disoriented, he can't even speak. And then he finally just rests, and you see the light go out in his chest plate. And then her reaction afterward made it all the more heartbreaking, and everyone else is crying. There was not a dry eye in the theater. I know, especially this guy. I cried 7 times, if not more. I cried like a little baby. I'm not ashamed to say that, because it was just a culmination of everything that led up to this, but it was the perfect ending. In that funeral scene, whenever there was like a flower in the pond, and it was like the thing that Pepper made for him in the very first Iron Man, said, proof Tony Stark has a heart, and that was on that flower going out into the pond. It's like, oh. And that funeral scene was pretty awesome too, because everybody was there paying their respects, and that's still kind of hard to talk about. But flash forward just a little bit later, Captain America ends up going to return all the stones, and sorry, I got a little bit emotional right there talking about it. But anyways, Captain America ends up going to return all the stones at their rightful time, just so the timeline don't get out of order and everything like that. And real quick, before I get to that, Thor ends up going with the Guardians, and I think that's going to lead up to Guardians of the Galaxy 3, because I think that's going to be a big plot point of them searching for not Nebula, but Gamora, past Gamora at that. And but anyways, flash back forward to Cap. Goes, returns the times, like the stones back at the rightful time, and for Captain America, it would be all the time that, excuse me, it would be all the time that he needs, but for everyone else in the present, it would be 5 seconds. So Cap picks up his hammer and his shield and ends up going back in time, but he doesn't come back in 5 seconds. He decides to stay back in the past, and of course Sam's freaking out, and it's like, well, get him back to Bruce. And he's like, I can't, I'm trying. And then Bucky is the one who realizes an old man sitting on the bench, and Sam walks up to him. It's an old Captain America, an old Steve Rogers. And Steve Rogers was like, I wanted to have a taste of what having a life feels like. And he ended up, of course, he put the stones back, but he ended up going back and being with Peggy Carter. And that last scene, I like leaned, I was like touching Mama. I was just like pretty much grabbing her. I was like, he promised her the dance. He promised her the dance. And I started crying again because that was so sweet. And that was the perfect send-off for Captain America. And he ended up giving Sam the shield, which was awesome. That was purely awesome. So he's going to carry the mantle of Captain America from here on out, and it just beautifully sets up what's going to happen for Phase 4 in the MCU. And my goodness. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole movie right there. I had to break it up into 2 parts, but my goodness, I'll have to go watch it again, definitely, to really soak up all the details. But that's pretty much my run through of the movie, filled with spoilers. But if you've watched all of this, part 1 and part 2, and you haven't seen the movie, shame on you. Shame on you. Because you just spoiled yourself a big time. Big time. But just like I said in my non-spoiler review, I gave this movie a 10 out of 10. And I rarely ever give movies a 10 out of 10. The only, I think there's only 2 other movies that deserve a 10 out of 10 for me, and that's Interstellar and John Carpenter's Halloween 1978. It's the only other two movies that deserve a 10 out of 10 for me. And my goodness, it was 3 hours long. It did not feel like 3 hours, and it's worth every penny. And I'm glad, I am beyond glad that this movie is breaking records. Beyond glad. I hope it breaks the record for highest grossing film of all time at the box office. I hope it does. I hope it beats Avatar. I really do. Don't get me wrong, Avatar was a good movie, but you know, this one has a special place in my heart. It will forever have a special place in my heart. But anyways, if you've stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. I can't thank you all enough for the people who watch my videos and give it a like. Honestly, I'm very thankful for it. After this, I'm going to take a couple days, take a break, and then sometime later this week, I'm going to start my Halloween review series. So I'm going to start with John Carpenter's Halloween 1978, and then go from there, in order, actually. And then after all that's said and done, I'm going to do a re-ranking of the Halloween franchise, because I've done a ranking of the Halloween franchise a while back ago. I think that was my second video, but that was before the new movie came out, so I gotta re-rank them. And then after that, what's coming up on the horizon. I know I said I was going to do a Halloween timeline video whenever I started doing this channel again. I just haven't got around to it yet. But I'll be doing that after the review series and the re-ranking. So after this video tonight, it's pretty much going to be Halloween centric just for a little bit. And I might do like, a couple quick movie reviews or something like that in between time. Just, quick 5-minute to 10-minute video on it, like on a movie. Just give, just a little bit of variety, if you will. But that is my spoiler reviews, if you will, for Avengers Endgame. One of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. I still got the feels for it. But anyways, I will see you guys in my next video. Stay classy, and Ethan Rowe out.